Truman, and here's another great verse for today. Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but the disposing thereof is from the Lord. How do you find God's will in your life? Is it by chance, or is it by direction of the Word of God, the Spirit of God, and the way of God? Well, in the Old Testament, often decisions were made by the casting of a lot. In fact, the 12 tribes of Israel, the way they received their land was by the casting of a lot. Often a lot is like a black and white stone. It's like flipping a coin, heads or tails, to make a decision. Well, one time I had a friend who was talking to me about trying to find the will of God. This is an extreme case. And so he said he felt like he should marry this young lady that he loved. Well, but he wanted God's will and direction. And so I said, well, how did you find God's direction? He said, well, I began to pray. I was driving on the highway, and I said, Lord, if I'm supposed to marry her, then let the next car that passed me be a red car. When I heard that, I thought, well, that's silly. He said, well, it was a red car, so I married her. Well, is that the way that we determine God's will today? No, it's not. In fact, the last time the cast of the lot is used is when Judas betrayed Christ, and there were 11 apostles, and they cast lots to choose the next apostle. Now, since that point, no longer do we see the casting of lots. So how do we find the will of God? Well, we find the will of God through the Word of God. The Word of God is never to be contradicted by our decisions. Then we find the will of God by the Spirit of God who is inside of us, giving us peace about the decision that we're to make. We find the will of God by God's providential doors being open. One more story about casting the lot. Two men that I know, good friends of mine, they both were about to make a decision about a job. One man had two jobs offers, and he said he didn't know which job to take. And so he cast the lot, kind of like flipping a coin. And that determined which job he would take. Now the other friend also had two job offers. But one job offer would mean that he would leave our church, no longer be part of our church. And he would take a job with a Fortune 500 company in Orlando. Well, he came to me one Wednesday night and said, Pastor, I have asked the Lord to choose the job for me. Now, the one in Orlando pays a lot more money with a much bigger company. But I feel like God's placed me in this church to grow and mature and learn under you, he said. So I am going to stay in the church and take the job that will not take me away from this church and my church family, what God is doing. Well, you know what? That company grew to be a major company. But even more so, that man went with me on every mission trip we took to India, to Brazil, and now he has his own ministry. He reached a point that he said to his company, I'm letting go of the company that I might be full-time at mission. So Proverbs 16:33, the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing of is of the Lord. Certainly this speaks of God's sovereignty. God's in control of all things, but don't play games with God. Things that you try to commit God to, God might not be playing your game. God bless you, my friends. Another great verse for today.